Hey guys, thank you for tuning in to the next episode of The Neutral Take. Here with me, your host Tony George-Owens, and the nomad travelling writer Johnny has had a bit of an upgrade. Say hello, Johnny.
Hello.
Oh, listen to that, crystal clear. Now, we're here for the mid-season review of Andor, and if you're a bit like me and not really checked it out, we'll show you a bit of a trailer and then we'll come back and see what Johnny's thoughts are on Andor from Disney.
To steal from the Empire? To just walk in like you belong? They're so proud of themselves. So fat and satisfied. They can't imagine that someone like me would ever get inside their house.
Cassian Andor. The Empire is choking us so slowly. We're starting not to notice. What I'm asking is this. Wouldn't you rather give it all to something real? I need all the heroes I can get.
For the greater good.
Call it what you will.
Let's call it war.
There's fermenting out there, son. Pockets of fermenting.
You're in my net. Are you a fish? Or are you a thief? You're slipping.
I'm not slipping. I've just been hiding for too long.
As long as everyone thinks I'm an irritation, there's a good chance they'll miss what I'm really doing.
What are you really doing?
This is what revolution looks like.
I'm tired of losing.
Okay, so my experiences with Star Wars then is where we're going to start. So I've loved the original trilogy, if that makes any sense. You know, like the ones in the 80s. Absolutely loved them as a kid, and I actually was probably slightly older than what the new trilogy. Well, I call it the new trilogy. It's the now middle trilogy, if you like. I was slightly too old for them for their pitch level, so I didn't really enjoy them as much because I felt like it was a bit too kiddie and not really for me. But I've retrospectively looked back at them and kind of gone, do you know what? They're nowhere near as bad as I remember them being. If you take out all the childlike stuff in them, they're actually not too bad. But then the latest trilogy came out when Disney kind of took over it, and there was a lot of hype, a lot of anticipation. Are they going to do a good job of it? I thought they might do because it was the same team that kind of did Pirates of the Caribbean. So I was like, do you know what? They've done a good job with them films, so there's no reason why they can't do a good job with these. And the first one came out and it was like, okay, yeah, there's some new interesting characters and storyline fairly similar to the originals. So I was excited to kind of see where they were going to go with it. And then they just kind of ended up making the original trilogy but remaking it with a few shocks in there. So I was kind of like switched off from it. Didn't really care that they were doing series. I've heard The Mandalorian is a fantastic series, but not checked it out myself. And any of the others that have come along, again, I've got no real interest in looking into. Other than the fact that I'm doing these reviews now, so I will watch them at some point. But that's my kind of background. So, Johnny, what's your kind of background in Star Wars?
So my first touch point was with the prequel trilogy, the very much hated trilogy back in the day. So the Phantom Menace, and so I don't know how old I was, but I think I was at the right age, and I didn't have a critical eye. So I really, really liked them. I still do, even though now I see all the flaws, but you see the vision behind it. And yeah, I just still enjoy them. And I, of course, enjoy the original trilogy as well. And then Disney took over. And as you said, the Force Awakens was nice. It's basically a remake of A New Hope. And then things went south. And, the Last Jedi and Rise of Skywalker, yeah, that was just an atrocity. And it only went worse from there. The Disney Plus shows, it started well with The Mandalorian, even though I think the second season is much better than the first. And then you had the whole Gina Carano debacle, which was not a good color on them. They ditched the established canon, which was just baffling. And then we had Book of Boba Fett and Obi-Wan, which were just garbage. Everything that can be said about them has been said, but yeah, they're really just garbage. It's just terrible writing. It's like they let primary school kids write those. It's just so lacking. So yeah, Star Wars now, like for most fans, is a very mixed bag. There's a lot of nostalgia, and especially the prequel trilogy is receiving a lot more appreciation now because ever since Disney took over, they fucked it up so hard. So yeah, that's my side for it.
I totally agree, and I've just thought, I remember seeing Rogue One, and again, because it was a different story arc from the Skywalker saga and all that stuff, I quite liked Rogue One. I thought as an independent film, it was all right. And again, I got that feeling, could they do something quite good with it, with this new trilogy? But so disappointed with it. Like, even from the first of the new trilogy, just it was exciting to see where it was going to go, and then it just plummeted. So what do you think this show Andor is trying to do, and in your opinion, do they do it well? Because like I've said, I've not seen any Star Wars series, and so I've not seen trailers. I don't know nothing about this show.
So yeah, Andor, it's basically they're milking this one character. So in Rogue One, you had Diego Luna, who plays Andor, the rebel spy. So this show is about him, and it's set, I think, 2 years before Rogue One. So that's already a weak premise. Like, they're going to milk something from something that's already milking something else. But okay. So to be honest, I had no interest or expectations. It just looked like another show churned out by the Disney factory, banking on Diego Luna's likability and the success of Rogue One. So I was very surprised to see that Andor was written by people who care about the world, who know how real people talk, and who want to tell a story that's actually interesting and adds to the Star Wars universe in its own way, which was very surprising because after Obi-Wan, yeah, my expectations were as low as they could get. Now, I have to say the show is a very slow burn. And especially the first 3 episodes, they could have easily be condensed into 2 episodes or one very long one. They did, however, set up the premise, which is, as I said a few years before Rogue One, and we follow Cassian Andor before he's a rebel spy, and we see how he gets pulled into this business, plus some flashbacks of his childhood. And then, thankfully, episodes 4, 5, and 6 definitely picked up the pace, and I found episode 6 very gripping. More on that later. Now, what can be said about the show regarding the scope is interesting because, in a way, the scope feels tiny. There's no Death Star, there's no Jedi, there's no Skywalkers. It's just some rebels in their early phases. It feels it's not. We don't see huge rebel bases with X-wing fighters. But still, somehow I cared, and I liked most characters, even those who didn't really receive a lot of attention. Yeah.
Cool. So, do you think that this show is good on its own, or has it been potentially elevated, like you said, because of the previous shows being quite bad?
There's certainly something true to that. First, I want to talk about the goal of the show, which I think is to show life under the Empire, how it feels for people on the ground. And like in the original trilogy, the original two trilogies, we had like a bird's eye view. It's a very grand perspective with important players moving about in gigantic leaps. And in Andor, we do get glimpses of the high life and the politics in Coruscant, but we're mostly on small planets with people living hard lives, small lives. And we see the bureaucratic side of the Empire and how it's not a perfectly running machine. The Empire is comprised of people, bureaucrats, peacekeepers, soldiers, spies, commanders. So this is interesting because we haven't seen it like that, at least not done well. And it shows the concept of boots on the ground quite well. And this adds a certain realism and a gritty side to Star Wars, which we haven't seen before, which is nice. But yeah, is the show good on its own? Or is it only good in contrast to what came before? Well, to be honest, yeah, if Disney hadn't put out the atrocities that were Obi-Wan and Book of Boba Fett, this show I wouldn't consider it to be as good. But because Andor contrasts to previous one, which were just bottom of the barrel in terms of writing, plotting, dialogue, and everything in between, Andor stands out as grounded, solid, and decently written. It's not great, it's not fantastic, it's not mind-blowing, but people in the show act like you would and should expect them to act. They talk in a way that makes sense, doesn't feel wooden, pretentious, or just bad. Looking at you, Rings of Power.
That's rubbish.
In short, it appears like people actually cared about this show and didn't want to push an agenda, just tell a story. I mean, how refreshing is that? And it helps that the cast is strong with Diego Luna in the lead. He's very likable and good. Stellar Skarsgård excelling as always. And the other supporting characters also, played quite well.
Oh, decent. Oh, so like apart from like you said, the pacing being a bit on the slow side, is there anything else that you didn't really like?
Well, the flashbacks to Andor's past didn't add anything, and it's neither relevant nor interesting. So I don't know why they spent quite a lot of time showing that. And also, they set up this one young commander for something, and I feel they could have done this way faster and could have given him way more personality. But who knows, maybe it pays off in the end. Like, all in all, this show illustrates how to do Star Wars right, especially because it contrasts so nicely with the previous two, and it underlines the flaws in Disney's general approach to stories, because for once, they let adults with some brains run the show, pun intended. And yeah, it's a shame. It's because it's kind of wasted. Because let's be honest, there's no buzz around the show, and I think most fans and even casual viewers have tapped out. So Andor is, all things considered, good, but it's a little too late, I think. Then again, this was never going to be the show to put Star Wars back on the menu. Just another piece of content for Disney Plus. So I think going forward, even if it keeps getting better as it has done so far and ends really strongly, I think the only thing that might get some fans excited again for Star Wars content is Mandalorian Season 3. And we'll probably do a review for that. What do you think?
Yeah, I think so. Like I said, I've not seen any of the Mandalorian, so I'll get a chance to watch the first two in bulk and then catch up hopefully by the end of Season 3. But I think, yeah, I can kind of get what you mean. Like, you know, because I quite enjoyed the original Star Wars. If I was watching a series on Star Wars, I'd probably want to see, lightsaber battles, X-Wings, and and Jedi powers and all that good stuff that you'd expect in that universe. And if you're stripping all that away to bare basics, like, it might be a really, really good story, but the fans are kind of expecting all these elements that you're saying aren't there anymore. And it's like, well, why bother tuning in then? So I kind of see what you mean by that, if that's the case. So it sounds interesting though. It's kind of slow burning, espionage-y sort of like stuff that we kind of like anyway. That espionage spy sort of stuff. It's going to be slow paced until stuff starts happening, like you say, later on in the series. So it'll be interesting to hear your thoughts on the second half, and hopefully I might watch it by the time you get there as well, and maybe I'll have some more input. But I think that'll do for us for this mid-season review of Andor, guys. We will give it a rating and a score at the end, as we normally do. But I think because we've both not seen it, it's kind of unfair for just one person to have their score. And we know what Johnny's like. He's a bit of a critic anyway, so he doesn't always give people a fair shout, which is what I'm here to do. I'm the mediator. Who'd have thought that? The British mediator between the Swiss guy. But yeah, let us know if you agree, disagree. Have you seen Andor and have any comments? Leave them in the comment section down below. If you've enjoyed what we've said, then give us a like and subscribe to the channel and share it with your friends who might want to hear some guys chatting about stuff that's out there on the telly box and their opinions on it. But don't forget, we're doing it from a slightly different angle, and that's what we're all about here at The Neutral Take. Hey guys, it's Tony George-Owens from The Neutral Take here with a message about my latest charity event. I am doing 100 hours worth of gaming in the month of October. Please, if you can, support my campaign for the Children's Society. There are lots of vulnerable children out there that need all the support and help that they can get. In difficult times, I know it's very hard to justify giving money to charity, but for vulnerable people, and especially vulnerable children, it's even more difficult. So please, follow the link in the description below and support my campaign, and come watch me on Twitch making an ass of myself as I try and play some video games. Because as most of my friends know, I'm only casual, and that's putting it lightly. So yeah, come and have a laugh at my expense, but please also donate to the charity. Thanks very much, guys.